Hi, everybody. I'm Todd Aaron Smith, and I have an idea for a nice sketch today. I love to draw, and most of what I'm going to sketch today is going to be a scene that I make up as I go. I was out of town recently, and I saw an old barn. Maybe there are old barns near where you live. I wondered what was in the barn, how long it had been there, what the history was. I thought about how great it would be to explore a place like that. So I thought of it again today and wanted to sketch it. I'm sure it won't be exactly like the one I saw, but that's okay. I'm sketching this because I like to sketch, not because I want my drawing to look like something I've seen before. You can do that too. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to start off a little bit differently than I usually do in a drawing. I'm just going to jump right in here and begin drawing this barn that I mentioned. I'm starting with a triangular roof. Now, I'm not very good at drawing straight lines. I've always said that. I just can't draw a straight line, and I don't know if you can draw a straight line. And I don't really want to get out a ruler or any kind of a straight edge and make my straight lines. I just want to sketch. And so that's what I'm doing here. I'm just making some lines. They're not necessarily very straight, but that's okay. It's going to be an old barn, and I think an old barn should look like an old barn. It should not be perfectly straight anywhere. You're welcome to do it however you like, but I think I'm going to start mine this way. I want to draw some pumpkins in this sketch as well, and I'm going to start to find where they go and just lay out some. I often, when I'm making my drawings, I'll make some of the parts of the drawings very close to us and some of them way back in the distance. And what I'm doing now is making some pumpkins that are going to be right up close, and I'll show you how we're going to make them look like they're right up close coming up in a little while. But as we go here, I'm just figuring out where I think they should be. I've got a light touch on my pencil. You know, I often try to determine where the horizon line is going to be, and that's often the first thing that I do with a lot of these kinds of sketches. And then I build everything on that horizon line. It helps me to think kind of in 3D, and it helps me to sketch the things that are far in the distance, the things that are in the middle ground, and the things that are up close. Some of my sketches that have perspective pushed to the extreme, where the background things are a long, long, long way back in the distance, that's how I draw a lot of them. I make them with some extreme perspective. For this sketch, though, I don't want to do that quite as much. You can do it however you like, but I think I will keep everything relatively close for this one. As usual, as I mentioned, I begin with a very light touch on my pencil. And what I mean by that, of course, is that I'm just barely touching my pencil to the paper to begin this sketch. And the reason I do that is to work out where I want things to be in the drawing. And I will then go back in and make everything look right and much darker and some areas lighter, some areas darker. That is one of the great joys of sketching. You get to decide what you want to draw and what you want it to look like. This is your world. Now that I've made some very light sketching to indicate where I want things to be, it's kind of thinking on paper when I do it that way. I just work out where I think the major things should be, and then I go back in, and as I'm doing now, I just push a little bit harder on that pencil, get a little darker line, and that's what I'm doing. In front of this barn, I think there must be trees and bushes and high weeds, different things like that. So I'm going to do it that way. We won't see the bottom of the barn where it touches the ground because we see a bunch of stuff in front of it, high weeds or bushes, and all these pumpkins that I'm going to be making too. In the front of the barn and on the side of the barns, I think there's always big windows and a great big sliding door. And that's what I'm working on here. I don't know what these really should look like. I'm just kind of sketching as I go, and we'll see what we get. Let's see, up here on the roof, let's straighten that out a little bit and make it more prominent. I think I need to fill that in with a bit of shading to set it off as separate from the face of the barn. We may have a light source that's up on the top right, so it's shining down and causing shadows to be on the left side of everything. These old barns, of course, are made out of wood panels, and so that's kind of what I'm just sketching in here. And as you can see, again, I'm making a bunch of them very quickly. I'm not using any kind of a straight edge, no rulers or anything. I'm just dragging the line straight down. And as we go here, I'm going to show you how you can kind of cover over for that. These lines are not exactly straight and they're not evenly spaced out, but I'm not concerned about that. This is my drawing and I am just having fun drawing it, and I'm just not concerned. You know, a lot of people who are sketching get worried about their drawings and how they're going to look, and they get worried about what they're going to turn out like at the end. They're afraid that they won't do a good job and that it won't look like they want it to look. But I think they're really missing the point of sketching. Drawing should not be a source of nervousness or frustration. Don't let yourself be worried or frustrated. It's just not worth it. Sketching is supposed to be the thing that fixes worry and frustration, not causes it. Don't let your drawings cause frustration or worry in you. That's what the reason we do this is to fix those kinds of things. Don't look at it as if you need to make an accurate illustration of something, because you sure don't. That isn't the purpose to sketching at all. You know, I draw baseball cards for the biggest trading card company in the world, and I have to draw these baseball players accurately. My cards all have to look like the players that they represent. Likenesses are very important in the baseball card world. But I can tell you, though, that it is so very nice to make sketches of other things like what we're doing right here. I don't have to make anything that I'm sketching look like anything else. I don't have a photo of this thing. I'm just drawing it as I go. And in the sketch, I'm just drawing an old barn and some pumpkins and some trees in the background. A huge advantage that we have with this one is that barns come in a variety of shapes and sizes, as do pumpkins and trees. So I don't have to worry about this not looking right, because there isn't a right. I can just be loose and free and enjoy the process without worrying about results. The results are that I enjoy the sketching. If I also have a nice drawing at the end of it, well, that's a bonus, but that's not the purpose of this. If I get a nice drawing, it'll be great. I can show it to my friends. But if I don't have such a great sketch, then I still had fun making it, and I can make another one. That's part of the joy of sketching. So we're making these pumpkins up closer. As you noticed, the one on the far right and the one that I'm working on now are probably the closest to the viewer of this picture. And so I want to make the lines darker and thicker than the other parts of the drawing. And so I'm just making these pumpkins. They have some lines and some panels on the pumpkins, and that's what I'm making. I'm thinking a little bit about how the light source is probably on the right side up in the sky, and so I want to make the shadows kind of reflect that. And in between all of these pumpkins, I'm just making some grass and some high weeds. I don't know what's there. It's just kind of a field, and I don't really want to be very careful about sketching out this nice grassy field. That's not a big concern to me. It's more fun to just be scribbly and sketchy and just make some shapes on there. And it looks right, too, when you do that. It looks good. So working on some of these shadows that would be on this pumpkin. Now you notice this pumpkin already has more details than the barn itself. And we're going to go back and forth on all of these elements and make them fit in with each other very well and make it look like it's a picture that belongs together. I think there should be some shading up here on the barn. Maybe there's some panels in there too. I don't know. But it doesn't really matter. Whatever you feel like sketching in there is the way you should do it, because that's what I'm doing. I think we'll go in here and work on my panels a bit, give them some shade. Now, this is one thing that you can do if you haven't drawn straight lines, just like I haven't here. You can go and make a bunch of shading that's uneven around your panels. See how that looks there? And it kind of hides the fact that you didn't draw very straight lines in the first place. It covers that and makes some good shading, makes some good texture on this wood, and it just makes for a very nice sketch if you do it that way. I'm going to go all the way across here, and I'm making the shading uneven as I go, which helps kind of with the illusion that this is an old barn. Let's see, inside of here, I don't know if I want that barn door to be open or closed, but I think I'll go ahead and make some more panels on here as if the door is closed maybe. And in front of this barn, I think I want to make some more high weeds and stuff sticking up so that I don't have to draw the base of the barn. I'm just drawing some things in front of it there. Up here on the top level, I think I want to do the same thing and make some random shading on these panels. And really it's just a texture that I'm putting on the wood. It makes it kind of look like wood. It's the illusion of wood, I guess, where it has a texture and some shading. And I think that covers over a ton of, like I said, it shows that I can't draw a straight line, which is okay. I'm not making this to try and practice drawing straight lines. I'm just making this because it's fun to make this, and I'm having a great time drawing it. So let's see, I just, as you saw, my pencil just slipped there, but that's okay. I'm not worried about it. Still just having fun and scribbling. It should look like a sketch. It is a sketch, and it should look like a sketch. It's not a finished illustration. And I want to put quite a bit of shading on all of these pumpkins. And once I'm done with this one, I'll take a look at it and know what this barn looked like and what the pumpkins looked like. I'm kind of making them up as I go here, which is just fine. Maybe you heard the joke about the little girl who was drawing at school. This little girl is sketching away, and the teacher says to her, "Hey, what are you drawing?" And she says, "I'm drawing God." And the teacher says, "But nobody knows what God looks like." And the little girl is completely unfazed by this, and she says, "Well, they will in a few minutes." That's how I feel about my sketches. So what does this barn look like? I don't know. Let's sketch it and find out. What do these pumpkins look like? I don't know that either. Let's sketch them and see. This is about discovery. This is sketching just for the love of sketching. I don't create art because somebody pays me to create art. I create art because I'm an artist. And you are too. All right, as I work back and forth on these pumpkins, a lot of them are just back here in the shade, and they're just kind of circular, shadowed figures without very much detail. The ones, again, up close are the ones that have more detail to them. I'm darkening in some of the shadows as I go because I feel like the things that are in the foreground need to be darker and more detailed. The things that are in the background should be not nearly as dark and not nearly as detailed, of course. I will put some more detail on it because I'm still thinking about these trees that I have in the far background, which we'll work on here coming up in just a couple of minutes. I'll be changing pencils here pretty soon, and we'll work on it with that. But before I do that, I'm still going to make some details on my barn and on the pumpkins with this same pencil that I began with. As you remember, when I first started sketching this thing, I drew very lightly, barely touched the paper at all with my pencil. And now I'm going back over it with the exact same pencil and bringing out those details and making it sharper and darker and just filling in this high grass and weeds and shadows and bringing out my shapes, bringing out the pumpkins that are sitting in this field. So coming up, let me show you the pencil here. This is Koh-I-Noor. This is the pencil that I use all the time. You may have seen it before. I have a lot of these pencils. I carry them around with me everywhere I go. I've got them in my desk. The second pencil that I'm using here is a woodless graphite pencil. And this one is very different than the first one. As you can see, it's putting down a much darker line. I'm barely pushing on this pencil at all as far as the pressure on the paper. But it's giving me a much thicker, darker line just to start off with. And I'm just going to kind of scribble here and make some shapes in the background. I don't want to define anything. These are trees that I'm making in the background, but I don't want to sit here and draw trees and draw branches and draw leaves or anything like that at all. I just want these to be far in the background, and so I'm just going to kind of scribble and make the indication of trees, kind of the illusion of trees back there, just so that when you're looking at the pumpkins in the barn, you get the idea that there's trees behind it, but they're not standing out. You don't want everybody's attention to be on these trees. They're just kind of a texture for the background. And so that's what I'm going to do here. I've already put down with the Mephisto pencil the light lines of where I want to put these, and now I'm just refining that and putting some shade down and just having fun with it, scribbling away, because scribbling is fun. Scribbling is a lot of fun. The first pencil I was using, again, though, is Mephisto. I call it my magic wand. And it says that right on the side of the pencil, magic wand. I'm just kidding. It doesn't say that. It actually says Mephisto on the little brown band that goes around it. That is the name of that pencil. I don't actually know what Mephisto means, but I bet it means magic pencil. That has to be it, right? It's made by Koh-I-Noor, and they make the best art supplies. I've been drawing the huge majority of my life. After high school, I went to art college. After art school, I was a professional animator and a storyboard artist. I've illustrated kids' books, I've drawn comic books, and now I draw trading cards. I have artwork in the permanent collection of the National Baseball Hall of Fame, and that is one of the greatest honors of my entire life. I'm telling you these things to say this. I can say with some authority that I have used pretty much every type of art supply known to mankind, but what I'm using now is the very best that I've ever had in my hands. The pencils that I'm using here just feel right, and I don't know exactly how to describe that to you when I say they feel right, but they have good balance. I can easily control how dark or light I'm drawing. I just can't say enough good things about these pencils that I use. Good art supplies make a big difference. But I'll tell you what, don't take my word for it. This is not a commercial, and I'm not trying to talk you into anything. All I will say is that if you will try these pencils, then you'll see for yourself. You'll send me messages and emails and social media that say, I tried that magic pencil that you told me about and created some magic of my own. And I would love to hear from you. By the way, I'd love to see what you sketch. I'd love to hear from you. I'm pretty easy to find online. My website is toddaaronsmith.com. My full name, toddaaronsmith.com. And you can get to my social media sites or email me from the links that are there. Anyway, send me a picture of what you've drawn. It's always an honor to see what you're sketching. As I continue in this drawing, I'm just pulling out some of the details and making more details in some places, keeping the details at a minimum in others. I'm just having fun doing this and just making lines and shadows wherever it feels like I should make them. You should do that too. Just have fun, and whatever you see, just sketch it. Let's see, I think here on this pumpkin I'll make a bit lighter shade or tone on this pumpkin that's right up close to us. Yeah, that feels pretty good. The things that are up close to us, and I've said this many times, but the things that are up close to us really should have more details and be drawn with darker, thicker lines. This pumpkin over here also is right up close to us. So I'm going to add some extra shadow to that one. And try to make this look right. I feel pretty good about this. See the trees that are in the background there. There's not very much detail at all. The pumpkins that are in the foreground have quite a bit more detail. And in the barn that's in the middle, has some detail of its own. It's not a huge amount of detail, but it definitely looks like it's further back away from us than these pumpkins do. And of course, I'm trying to sell the idea that there are pumpkins sitting here in the high grass by making some high grass sketching. And those are basically just some scribbly lines. That's all they are. Now, as I look over this picture that we've been working on, I look at the barn and I notice that it's not very straight. It looks like it's a pretty old barn. It's been sitting there for a long, long time. And I don't know if anybody even uses that barn anymore. You can just make up your own story about what you've drawn, what's inside of the barn. Love driving by old barns, and I see them once in a while, and I think about how it would be great to explore a place like that and just go in there and see what's in it, or to know about the history of that barn, how long it's been there, and what's been stored in it, all that kind of stuff. That's a lot of fun to think about. So it's fun to let your mind wander in things like that as you're drawing. And of course, the real reason that this barn is looks more like an older barn is because I didn't use any rulers to draw the straight lines, and I just kind of scribbled them in here quickly, just having fun doing it. Now, the trees that are here in the background, I'm putting down some darker shades in some of the areas just to give it a bit more volume. But again, there's not any details there. It's just some of those scribbly marks. Can make a few little tiny branches popping up out of the trees here and there. That helps kind of with the illusion a little bit. You can do that if you like, or not. Okay. Well, we oftentimes will do this perspective thing where I'll have some things up really close and some things that are really far away and other things that are in the middle ground. In this particular drawing, like I mentioned right at the beginning, we're not doing that quite so much. We have a bunch of stuff in the middle ground and these pumpkins that are much closer. You are, of course, free to continue working on this. I may get this back out again later and work on it some more. You could do all kinds of things with this, though. You could put a big mountain range in the background. I didn't work on any sky in this one at all. You could make a mountain range that is far back in the distance back there. You could put in a sky with a lot of clouds in it. There's a lot of different things you could do here that I just haven't done. This one is pretty much finished, though, at least as far as I want to make it. I could continue on with this and do a lot more, and I may do that, like I said. But I'm going to put it in my sketchbook soon and take another look at it later. And when I do, I will see it in a different way. I may add to it, or I may just leave it alone like it is. I've had fun drawing this. I hope you've had fun watching me draw this and try it yourself. And that's the finished drawing. There you go. That's how I sketched an old barn in the country this time. If I drew this again, it might look completely different. That is another great thing about sketching. You don't have to make your sketch look like any real place. This is your drawing, and you should feel free and draw whatever comes to mind. Sketch for the love of sketching and make your world whatever you want it to be. See you soon.